Hello and welcome to the Delirium engine, where we get distracted by life's everyday trials. Sometimes so much that we forget to do an episode, but not this week. This week, we're right on time, or at least in the new scheduled time, and I'm with my good friend the Spartan. And we are once again doing an episode of Enter Session, where we discuss the parts of a GM session scenario and discover what makes each part the most successful with the least effort. We are on episode 5 of 7.
Getting
5
there.
of 7. We're almost there.
Yep.
I don't know. I think Enter Session has been surprisingly good, but also somewhat bad at the same time. I think it's because the session parts they're so interconnected that, and I think this episode won't be much different, but they're so interconnected that, like, when you cover topics in one section, you're just retreading the same ground often.
Yeah. It's hard to differentiate. Sometimes pull it apart.
Yeah, whereas like a character or with like rules for GMs and things like that, it was everything was quite separate. These are all different parts of the narrative, right? Whereas this is just one specific thing. Yeah, I don't know. Could be wrong, could be right. But moving along, today, as I said last week, our episode is about, drum roll please, distractions. Beware the quest giver. So like I always do, I'll go into a brief synopsis of what exactly we're talking about, followed by, actually this time I'm going to take a little bit of a different track. I'm going to do a brief synopsis, then I'm going to let the Spartan, almost doxed you there.
Yeah, good catch.
I'm going to let the Spartan sort of maybe discuss something from the player perspective, and then maybe his GM perspective, and then after that we'll wrap it all up with me talking about what I do, and then we'll have the open discussion. How does that sound? I
Sure.
think that thought about the formatting just because we don't have, it's not a group, so it's going to be like a more, you piece of crap, what is this?
Why are people texting me? I don't get... Oh, it's Shooty. He's sending me more Immiger stuff.
Perfect. Thanks Shoots.
Yep.
Caremaine Shoots, whatever his name is. What did we call him when he did that one episode?
I don't know. I think it was Shooty.
No. Well, whatever. So, I'm just going to jump into what we're talking about. So when I say distractions in a session, I don't mean that the distractions that occur when players play a session. That is to say, when somebody says something silly and everybody laughs, or someone says something stupid and everybody cringes, or whatever. Everybody goes out and gets something to eat. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
What we are talking about is the side quests, or the superfluous things that you can add to a game. So imagine if D&D was Skyrim, right?
Yeah.
You got your main quest, and then you got your other quests that really don't lead you. Like they'll come to a conclusion, but they won't really lead you anywhere, right? And we're not talking about side quests in general, which can be entire sessions on their own. I'm just talking ones that aren't big enough to be a session, but small enough that if you put them in, they will, but they're big enough that they can distract the game, but small enough that they're not their own session.
Yeah, like short stories.
Yeah, they're like just a tiny short story. Grandma's cat is in the tree. Something that happened that doesn't necessarily involve you hunting down that vampire that you were hunting down.
Yeah.
Right? Or whatever. So I think that covers it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just mini quests. Little things that happen, problems that occur. Maybe something that the GM adds in addition, like if you plan something out for a session, like once the session is finished, maybe it's extra stuff he's put in.
Yeah.
If the players go this way, they can do this. If they go this way, they discover this. Etc., etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to try this new track, turn it over to you. And so, when you've played games,
Okay.
as a player, have you ever encountered this sort of thing in the games that you have played?
Well, yeah. There's pretty much never been a game where I haven't encountered side quests, essentially.
Okay.
Like the little mini stories.
And so, when you did encounter them, did you find them good, or did you find them actually distracting?
It's hard to say, really. Like, generally when you run into them, it's when you're on the downtime of the main quest. It's just a little thing to keep you entertained, I suppose, between the big story arcs that the GM is weaving.
Have you ever encountered them within a story arc?
I have to think about that one.
I know that you have.
I have?
Yep. Absolutely you have.
Well, probably in one of your games.
Yes.
It's just my memory's real crap and I have to think about it.
Well, okay. Let me give you the scenario and then you can give me your opinion on it.
Okay.
So you guys are playing the Future Foundation game.
Okay.
And the Spore Troll came up.
Oh, yes, the Spore Troll one.
The Spore Troll is a perfect distraction. Nothing to do with the evil fascist empire of squid little people. It had nothing to do with you guys taking control, like, killing that girl on her Sweet 16.
Yeah,
nothing to do with anything. But there was a troll. It is a thing.
Yep. Yes, it was.
There was angry mobs and prelates involved and all sorts of weird stuff.
One of the main characters got flung across a river.
That's right.
It was quite entertaining.
Yeah. A spore troll, for those people who don't know, which is everybody, imagine a gorilla made of a plant, and when you hurt them significantly, they regenerate like a troll would, and if you hurt them significantly, they produce more spore trolls.
Yeah,
Like full size spore trolls that will attack you temporarily.
It was temporarily?
When they become they're babies.
Yeah.
But one of their magical properties is they can absorb a lot of moisture in the air really quickly and get real bloated and big. So they're full size spore trolls to defend the mother spore troll.
Yeah.
But after a little while, it fades. Like they go back to being little guys.
Oh.
And then they can go back to being big after a little while. Yeah, it's a temporary thing.
Okay.
But if you don't smash this pods that get sprouted pretty quickly, they become a big horde of spore trolls and you have a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
They're also tasty. They make a good salad.
Yes, I do remember that being a thing.
Yes.
Mentioning that.
Anyway, speaking of distractions, let's get away from that one. So what did you think of that distraction? Like, just to throw an example at you so you don't have to think off the top of your head. Was that good? Was that enjoyable? Would you have preferred to be doing something else? Like, what do you think?
I think it was good. Because we were kind of at a point where nobody really knew what to do or where to go. And just throwing it in there was... Well, it wasn't something huge. Like it could have been. Spore trolls, as you just explained, can be very problematic. It gave our characters a bit of a break.
I think if I remember correctly, you guys were trying to angle it so that you could use it for your other gains, like to gain in the main.
Yeah, it was going to be like our ticket. We were going to capture this thing or kill this thing, and then we were going to, because apparently it's really tasty, so we were going to use it as our get-in ticket to the...
I think you were going to try to take it so you can domesticate it, was what I actually remember hearing. Like, you were going to sell the pods or something. Like, you were going to try to capture it and, like, make it so that they can make, like, little spore troll armies or whatever.
It was going to be a gift to the Deva.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she would do whatever she wanted with it.
Yeah.
So we could basically get into the high society section of the party.
That's right.
Which never came to fruition.
Yeah. Because you decided to not kill a girl on her Sweet 16.
Yeah, I was basically the only one arguing to not be child murderers.
Yeah. She's a full-grown adult. What are you talking about? I had her so statted out. I don't know. That was a fun character to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had like all sorts of I don't know. I wrote down all the stupid little things in every detail of that character was just to sort of emphasize that like she was like a girly little like a tom girl.
Okay.
She got like little ribbon. Like I put like I mentioned that there was like ribbons on the bloomers and like she had one tooth missing because she was a bit of a scrapper.
Yeah, I remember.
All sorts of goofy stuff that have been were added just to make all the like to sort of almost tug at the heartstrings of the players to get them to really like. This isn't like an evil sorceress queen. This is literally a little girl that just happens to be a sorceress queen.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but yeah, it gave us something to do, like, because we were stuck on this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on
Yeah,
a
I
big
remember
overall
this.
plot. So it gave us something to do while we're trying to think.
there was some serious there was almost like 2 hours of just you guys debating over whether or not you should actually even do the thing that you wanted to do or not. And so like the sport troll idea was, I don't even remember how it came to pass. I think it was just like news.
Yeah.
Like I just made some news of the day, and then everybody and Shooty latched onto it.
Yeah. Because we were like spending hours upon hours talking to each other about basically going in circles, not going anywhere.
Yeah. But with that said, as a GM, how have you used added distractions in your game, or have you at all? What do you think the approach would be to adding them to a session that you produce?
There was one or two recently that I had. Basically, two of my PCs were going off to do a thing, and it was a big important thing towards the main plot. That left the two other PCs with really nothing to do. So I threw them a little mini side quest thing that helped out the main plot, but was basically went nowhere.
Did you pre-prepare it?
A little bit.
Oh. Okay.
Because I knew this was going to come up. Like,
how long did it take? From start to finish, do you think, roughly?
Like, actually playing it out, or...
Yeah, like the distraction. How long did it take?
30 minutes to an hour, if that. It wasn't very long. It was basically one of the players went up to a building, went into the building, killed the guy that was spying on the small town.
Sure.
And then... Yeah, and then he left.
Okay, yeah. But it was a thing, and it opened some stuff up. Okay, that's great. Okay. That's so do you, what would be the best question to ask here? So you said that was good. That worked out well. And everybody sort of felt involved, like even when the PCs that were going off and doing a thing, and then these other ones who had to stay behind, they did a thing.
Yeah.
So you added that. Did you add that between sessions? Did you add that ad lib?
It's kind of ad lib.
Okay.
Well, the two others were off doing main story stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I gave the other ones stuff to do.
Okay. That's
as a
fair.
distraction for them, because otherwise it'd just be them sitting around like, we got nothing to do. So.
Okay. So what do you think? Do you have an opinion on what you believe the sort of most efficient way to produce these distractions in your game would be?
The most efficient way?
Yeah. So you're producing a session. This is before the game's even started. You're producing your sort of session and planning it out. You're putting your details and your notes and your environment stuff and whatever, your characters.
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, I'm going to add a few little side ditties. How do you do that? Well, what do you think is the most efficient way? What kind of work do you put into it? Honestly, the caveat here is more work is better.
Yeah.
You produce the entire game of Skyrim on your piece of paper there, then I'm sure that's going to be a lot more interesting than somebody who did nothing.
Yeah. I generally gear them towards the players themselves, like how their characters, things their characters would be interested in.
Okay.
So, like I said with the previous one, it was Shooty's character, and his character is a big fighter person.
Okay.
So her big thing was she she's like this raid leader,
Mm-hmm.
and she goes around fighting people and taking their shit.
Sure.
So that's the kind of stuff that she's interested in, like going around and picking fights and doing that. So
you added a fight.
Yeah, I added a fight to a place where normally there wouldn't be a fight.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Found a reason to put it in there. Maybe
Yeah.
it enriched things. Yeah, that's as good a reason as any. So, all right, we've covered that ground, I guess. So I'll go into sort of how I view the distractions part of the session making.
Yeah.
And then we'll open her up to regular discussion. Once again, much like some of the other pieces, I don't do much in the way of work on distractions, and if I do, it's really just because I've been writing notes on the environment, and I'm like, oh, if PCs do this, they go here. Like it ends up being a single sentence.
Yeah. Mine was pretty similar to that.
Okay, so there are a couple of exceptions. Now, if I've built a session and it's going long, and when I'm going long, I mean either the session is dragging.
Yep.
So the PCs are stuck because they just don't know what to do, not necessarily because of a puzzle, but they just like, I don't know what to do.
Talking
right?
in circles for 2 hours, yeah.
You distract them with something and they might come up with some, eureka moment.
Mm-hmm.
But the other one is if the game is running long for whatever reason. Say you planned the game to be like 5 hours, but like all good games that all GMs plan, that 5 hours is extended to like 35 hours sometimes. Just 4 or 5 sessions later of like 8-hour sessions of like, let's go eat some food, let's talk about bull crap,
Yeah.
Oh, suddenly the PCs don't want to do this thing, they want to work on some random thing that they, this session goes long, right? Every new day of playing, I usually add 1 or 2 more things. So like little distractions, mini sessions, right? And maybe this is one of the reasons why it goes to 35 hours, because like I'll add these distractions, people get caught in them. But when people are working on like a main story arc or a session of yours, sometimes I'll add an extra 1 thing in.
Yeah.
Because like whatever made the session go long last time, not always, right? Like if they're in the middle of a dungeon, maybe not. But sometimes it's kind of not very fun when you're like 3/4 of the way through a dungeon and then you finish the session up and it's like only going to be like 2 hours. So you add some junk in there to extend it so that it can fill the block. And it just happens that sometimes the distractions I throw in end up taking a little longer than I expect. Or whatever, right?
We're real smart people. We get things done.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just I'm real dumb and I make things ridiculous. Who knows?
Yeah.
Either way, the point is usually with every new sit down that we have in the camp in the session, I'll make a new one.
Yeah.
Excuse me. In the scenario, I suppose. And so, but when I write them, depending on what it is, usually, like I said, it's only about a sentence or 2 about what's going on. And if there has to be like a map or something like that, or maybe a layout, it's like a sketch.
Yeah.
Like I don't build dungeons or anything for a distraction. The other thing is I'll often ad lib. Like I don't plan it, but sometimes the players will ask a question that like is not written for the scenario, and they'll just be like, "Well, what's the news of the day?" And you're just like, "Oh, well." So this is your sort of opportunity to throw a bunch of distractions out, because obviously the player's looking for something. Mm-hmm. Like they're looking for something to do that isn't what you just gave them something. Like what isn't the hook that you've given them, or isn't the hurdles that are in their way presently. They're looking for something else. So when you sort of feel that that's happening, you throw the distraction at them. And if you're really clever, maybe you can have the distraction lead into thing or lead into the main plot, or have it attached to the main plot in some way. Like, for example, it's like the evil tyrant has taken over the town. PCs are like, what's the news? And you're like, well, one of the lieutenants of the evil tyrant is, he's causing a ruckus at the local fishing convention. I don't know. Just something off the top of my head, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you go there and you beat him at the fishing derby. Who knows? Maybe you just drown him because you're a bunch of meanies. Who knows?
That sounds like a great way to deal with the guards.
Yeah. Beat them at the fishing derby.
Yep.
A win for the rebels. But yeah, the way I would say the most efficient way to do it is not do anything and then ad-lib it all. But that's not always possible, especially when you have these distractions where you like one of those like multi-session scenarios.
Yeah.
And then you want to sort of tack on some time. So in those cases, a few sentences with description, like almost like a mini scenario. Like instead of like of like 5 or 10 characters or whatever, maybe you add one, or don't add any. Don't even add characters, just use the existing ones. Maybe like a little sketch of what like if you're gonna put like some new dungeon or room or something like that, and then like if you're gonna add some special monster, you know, you might have to do a monster write-up.
Yeah.
If you don't have something available already, which is fine to me. That's pretty good. Or even if you don't write a full write-up, a proper write-up, you just do like a quickie, where it's just like, oh, this thing has AC and hit points and it does a thing.
Yeah.
You know, it does a fancy thing, and that fancy thing is, I don't know, a bunch of fire damage or something. Who knows? Something. With that being said, what do you think? Do you think that that approach that I was outlining can be refined even further somehow? Or do you think that that's like, do you think that's the most... Yeah, that's pretty tough, right?
Yeah, that's...
I mean, okay, well, do you think that it needs more work? Do you think, like... What kind of distractions... Actually, let's take a different track, because it sounds like you're probably going to just say, yeah, that's right, Brian.
Well, I mean, if you're pretty good at ad-libbing and just coming up with shit on the fly, then yeah, go ahead, like, do it. But if you're not, maybe take a...
I guess you have to assume. We have to
Yeah.
assume you're not good. So, yeah. Take a minute or so. Like, I'm okay at it. But I guess if you take a minute or so and just, like... one thing I would note is if you're going to use distractions, don't use the same ones.
Yeah.
You know, again and again. You know, you can only use so many spore trolls before people realize what you're doing. You know, like there's only so many goblin encampments that are just going to pop up to distract people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. After the 43rd, it gets real samey.
If you can find some sort of randomizer to help you think of things, that might be a good idea. I use the Chaos Engine often when I'm really stuck on something to do. I'll just pop the Chaos Engine, do like 4 or 5 rolls, and it'll build the whole scenario for me. And that's almost a campaign on its own, so you just got to keep it short.
Yeah.
But it will produce another character that you could just write a quick blurb about and be good to go. Yeah. With that said, though, I guess the next part that I liked hearing about was the catering the distractions for your players. So you've built hurdles, let's say,
Yeah.
right? And you realize that they're stumbling at the hurdles. So your pacing is going down, right? Yeah. Building distractions, almost like side quests, that with more time and a little bit of catering to the player allows the player to attack these problems from a different angle.
Yeah.
Might be a good idea, because sometimes the players don't actually have a solution at their fingertips. So, like, I don't know, for some reason you put a magic wall in front of the players and they need magic, and none of the like, say the wizard didn't show up today.
Oh no.
Or whatever. Like, I don't know, he's just not around and the players don't have that means, so you got to find some way around it that doesn't necessarily involve you hiring another wizard. Like, you know, because there's always I could just use money and save the day. But, you know,
Wow.
a good distraction might be one that allows the pacing of the game to continue without and allowing the players to look good doing it, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, for example, magic barrier, you know, maybe we need to take a few moments and find some sort of, like an oil or something that will allow my sword to break the magic barrier.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Find the generator that's
Or
powered.
find a way in, like,
Yeah.
you know, find the sewer entrance through the sewer entrance or whatever. Like another, like a sub entrance that might get you around this magic barrier.
Yeah.
You know, who knows if such a thing even exists. And that could come, and the way to introduce these kinds of distractions actually would be a good thing to talk about. Something even like, say, the magic wall thing, something as simple as a vent, might distract them. It's like you feel the cool air on your face coming from underneath, and you're like, wait, what? And it's like, yeah, I guess there's like a vent system underneath that's letting air come through.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, it's not big enough for you to fit through, but who knows? Well, maybe now you need a shrinking potion or something. Like, who knows? Like that's suddenly a distraction that might allow the players to succeed.
Yeah.
And as long as it's catered in some way to the players, to at least one of the players that's available.
Yeah.
It might work out. Or if, like, for whatever reason, your mage just isn't doing it, assuming we're using the same scenario. It just isn't capable of thinking through the puzzle or doing the puzzle, or who knows what, maybe he got killed by a goblin last room.
Oh, right? No.
Like, something happened and, like, you're stuck. These distractions might be your saving grace.
Yeah.
And just come up with some sort of real, like, how could they possibly do this? Or how could I make this work for this guy? Often, the players themselves will ask a question. And if you have a pretty good player, they'll give you cues about what they kind of want to do. It's like, oh, is there, like, a vent system or anything around? It's like, oh, yes, but distraction, it's a little bit too small for you guys.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Like, that would be your side quest. And, obviously that wasn't the original track to defeat the wall, but you built this distraction in addition to that.
Yeah.
And once again, that can only be done through ad-libbing, or if you knew that the player, for whatever reason, isn't going to be there in the next week. Like, you built a scenario, it's gone long, and you know that, like, oh, the mage died, and so this puzzle I made for the mage isn't going to work out.
Yeah.
But I would say use the distraction. Don't remove the puzzle.
Yeah.
Because it would make the PCs regret that the wizard died, or whoever, right? The great warrior that's blocking the way might have the PCs regret that the barbarian was killed by that other wizard back 2 rooms before.
Oh, geez, we're running out of people.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. They always keep coming back. New guys show up every session, being like, "You look like hearty adventuring stock. May I join your team?"
Oh.
I am roughly the same level as the rest of the party.
Oh boy, you'll fit right in, good sir.
Don't worry, I'm a quiet loner.
What? That is, yeah. That does seem to pop up a lot.
Okay. Would there be any other scenarios where distraction would be useful? So far, what we got, like, seeing as how we're moving in this direction right now, we've sort of got, like, as a way to increase the pace of the game when you need pacing.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. And use them as distractions. Don't necessarily rip down the barriers. Like, use distractions in order to circumvent these barriers that the PCs are having trouble with.
Yeah.
And that just will require you to be a little bit clever. Don't just sit there and smile as the PCs struggle. Give them half an hour of struggle and then just be like, oh,
my grand scheme.
Yeah.
You'll never figure it out.
Yeah. Give them about half an hour of struggle.
Yeah.
And then see if you can add some distraction to it. But where else do you think a distraction would be really useful other than, like, a little bit of time increase, maybe something to move barriers around, or a way to perk up a player when they're not really being very useful.
Yeah.
Like, you realize that a player is just sort of sitting there on his phone, and so you need something to make that player more interested.
I would say put them in on the low sections, because, like any good story, you shouldn't be at the peak of...
Yeah, no distractions at the climax?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, when pacing is low, that's where you throw your distractions in. That's a good point. So when you prepare them, don't necessarily, unless you obviously, like, what you're doing, I guess, and this is like a plan of yours, like in the middle of a fight, you notice, like, this would be an interesting one. It's like in the middle of some fight with a vampire, like, someone down the hall, you notice, just runs by completely unrelated, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You get a good glimpse at them and you realize they stole the treasure or something like that. Like, that's a distraction.
There goes all your money reward.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But that might be an interesting... Like, other than some sort of weird narrative thing like that, it might be interesting to do that. do you think there should be lots of little distractions all over the place, or just maybe one or two? What do you think?
I don't think there should be lots, because a lot of little distractions equals a lot of pacing destruction.
Yeah, I suppose. I was going to say be quite liberal with them.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily the right answer, but like, it depends on what your goal is. Like, I don't mind throwing 101 distractions, because if you're not forcing the players to take the distraction, like, as long as they're not mandatory, stuff's happening all around you, all sorts of weird shit's happening.
Well, yeah, but that's how you get paranoid players.
I do always have paranoid players.
Well, that's because you're you.
Well, there you go. Maybe it's because I had so many distractions that nobody knows what the fuck's going on.
Yeah. Like, if you start pointing out every little thing, like, oh, there's a dollar on the floor. How did that get there? Well, there's a Rogan on the rafters or something. Like, you throw 101 things in there, nobody's gonna know what to do or where to go.
I suppose, yeah. That might make sense. It depends on the feeling, I guess, you want. So maybe the more distractions you throw into a game or into a scenario, it might create this, like, an anxiety. It might create anxiety among your players.
Well, I can almost say it definitely will.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, if that's the experience maybe you have, and I can see it happening, where it's just like, as long as the distractions are all, like, weird, like, why is that there? What's going on? What is even happening? Like,
yeah.
Why is there a guy staring at us from the alleyway? Things, all these little distractions that could lead all sorts of different ways, that heightens the anxiety of your game. So I'll accept that, and I'll say that that's probably almost 100% true.
Yeah. Well, you also kind of have to go with... You have to have sort of an idea for what each one can lead to as well, which can be very taxing on the GM.
Mm-hmm.
If they throw in 101 distractions, well, that's 101 different directions off the storyline, right?
Well, you don't need a storyline, because plot is irrelevant.
Well,
But when you build the scenario, this
right,
is something that you expect that the PCs will be going into. Like, this is something that they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Right. So you know that they're going that way. You're not guiding them through this plot you've created. You're building you're erecting the barriers between the players and their goal. So, yeah. Either way, you build these distractions and things start getting interesting. And maybe that's a good idea. If you're running like a horror game too, that might be something worth mentioning. It's like a lot of little things happening, especially if the distractions are like tea kettle on roof kind of things.
Yeah.
Tea kettle on roof being, I don't know if it's just a like a local meme or whatever. It's supposed to be like horror elements are weird when you can't explain them and when they're mundane.
Yeah.
So a giant monster under the bed is, I guess, scary, but it's not as scary as a teapot under the bed. Why is there a teapot under your bed?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
So you look under your bed, you see a teapot, and you go, what? Why is there a teapot under the bed? Oh, and it looks like tea was just recently made in it. And you start thinking, what? But, like, the players won't get that, like, anxiety or, like, why is this happening if it's just like, there's a monster under the bed. It's like, okay, I run.
Yeah.
Like, you immediately can diffuse it. It doesn't, that the problem is there and you can escape from it. So tea kettle on roof is just that meme, right? Like, it's a meme of something that is mundane but not explainable.
Yeah.
So in a horror style distraction would be something like that, and those are the best ones where it's like, instead of blood on the walls, there might be ink. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
There might be like, instead of someone wielding a knife, there's a guy wielding a flower in your house.
Okay.
Across the street, looking at your home with a flower in his hand.
Yeah, no, that'd be weird.
That's creepier than a guy with a knife. You know that the guy with a knife is dangerous, but you don't know that the guy with the flower is dangerous, and he's a distraction now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually a good point to put into, I guess, like, depending on the feeling you want to produce with your thing is
you can use them to heighten the tension.
Yeah, you change the nature of the distraction. Yeah. Well, thinking about it, do we have anything else that we could sort of add to that? Like, to sort of go back to the topic, I guess, like the most successful for the least effort would be ad-libbing, obviously.
Yeah.
But
On the fly.
if you can't, be mindful of how much what distractions you put in. Don't put too many in. Maybe one per session, like one per sit down.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or if the players are looking for it, like if they're gunning for a distraction, they hand it to them. Or if they're distracted, hand it to them. The exceptions to this, obviously, is if you want to produce some sort of emotion. You want to invoke some emotions in them. And anxiety is a very good one. If you put lots of distractions in, you'll get a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
Like imagine if you encounter merchant after merchant after merchant. Like it's like a merchant approaches you, says a thing. He offers you wares. 5 seconds later, a merchant approaches you, offers you things. He sells you wares. And then the next, like you're just traveling down the road, a merchant approaches you. It's like after about the 4th time, people are just like, "Holy fuck, we skipped the merchants." It's like a merchant approaches you. You know, people, no matter how mundane it is, even if the merchants are all just regular merchants, yeah, it looks like there was a convention and they all got their wares, they're just leaving. But you don't know that, and suddenly it's spoopy, right? Like this is all like anxiety keeps rising because now you think people are screwing with you.
Yeah.
So be careful, I guess, too, with the amount of distractions you throw in. It can create like scatteredness. Like the players can all be like, "Oh, we got to go this way, that way," and they start making like a quest list. Things like that.
Yeah, you don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Because then you get like Fallout and Skyrim syndrome where
you
just do side quest after side quest.
There's a game Swampy runs where it's essentially turned into that, where he's given us the main quest is like stop a thing, but the main quest is actually just a series of small side quests. Like they're all scenarios in their own right, but the way he's structured it is it's like there's the main quest, stop the big bad.
Yeah.
But in order to stop the big bad, we have to pick and choose our scenarios to go into, which is all kind of like distractions. So it's literally like a big list of things that
a pick your own adventure book kind of thing.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
It's not my favorite, but whatever. It's working all right.
Well, I suppose if you do it right.
I don't know. I don't know if it's actually the most successful. Like, I think it's okay because I like playing games, but in terms of successful choice of producing the narrative or whatever, or like you bringing these barriers up, I don't. I think it's lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like putting a bunch of like newses of the day that don't like the. Swampy does say that he likes to change. The world changes as you move, but it really doesn't. Especially when you use that narrative device. It's like, oh, here's a bunch of choices you can make. Okay, well, we take them as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
But, you know, if we take a month traveling and all this other stuff, like, you know, from the time that we first heard about things to, like, you know, the present day, you know, 7 months have passed and nothing's changing in these things. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, maybe a fancy GM would figure a way through that. Like, you'd start dealing with repercussions of things later on. But anyway, that's a totally different game, and they're not really distractions so much as they're like choose your scenario. But you could see where if you had a game, a session that had a lot of these distractions, people would be like, okay, well, we got to go save the cat, and then we got to go we're gonna go deal with that pickpocket, and then we're gonna go find this other thing, and it's like, and the whole point of this session was to go kill a dragon, and now you're like, you know, Grandma needs to cross the street, and we got to make sure that guy gets his money back. You know, you don't want that.
You gotta bring Jim his sandwich.
Jim needs a sandwich. That's important. You know, the dragon's over there burning that woman, and we'll fight him off, but we'll deal with him later.
Yeah. You don't really want that to happen.
No. Okay. Yeah, I think that summarizes it. With that, you know, we added that tangent distraction, but that more or less summarizes, I think, distractions. If you guys have anything to add, once again, please leave a comment. I love reading your comments. Lately, especially because there aren't any, so it's real easy.
Yeah.
But I want people to make my life more difficult so that I can read more comments. Like, subscribe if you're hearing this for the first time. We have a whole array of Welcome to the Delirium Engine episodes that go into all sorts of topics. If you like talking about the minutia of GMing and being a player, and sort of the rules of playing and things like that. Yeah. Also, to just sort of like go off to end this topic and then move on to some other tangential things, I'm going to turn off this boop. If you guys who are listening like the idea of maybe me summarizing each of the Welcome to the Delirium Engine episodes into like maybe a little round table of 10 minutes or so, this might be instead of watching an entire podcast that's like raw, and sometimes it goes like an hour and a half. Like this one's 40 minutes, and there's a lot of ums and ahs.
Yeah.
We might come to the conclusion and then like build some sort of little script after we have an episode. If that's something you guys would be interested in, leave a comment. Let me know, and maybe I'll try to build that into our production schedule, such that it is. So yeah, with that said, I hope you guys all enjoyed this episode. It was short, sweet, but I think it's about the right size. Like I think the 40-minute episodes were what we normally had back when we first started.
Yeah, before my time.
Before your time, and that was a good episode. Like those were good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd like to thank the Spartan for coming out.
As always.
And I thank you all for listening. You guys all take care and don't die.